Hello, everyone. My name is Gregory Sumner, and today I'm going to be talking about the Lucas text, chapters 1 through 4. Now, chapter 1, it has to deal with public speaking. And the book pretty much states that there's a very similar um, when it comes to public speaking and your daily conversations. The only big difference is your daily conversations are informal, and public speaking is going to be more formal. It also talks about how people have nerves and they get very nervous. It talks about how you can use that nervousness, which is good to an extent, and you can use it for the better good to have a better outcome when it comes to your speech. It also talks about how to speak to a cultural, diverse place, meaning in America, like this, could say, "Hey, how you doing?" or "Goodbye." But in South America, you could have just insulted somebody. You could have said something they didn't like, so it could cause an uproar with these people where they just want to beat everybody up, or particularly you, or it could cause you to lose a bid because they took, some, uh, they took it to heart and they were like, "Oh man, I don't like this guy, and we're not going to give him the bid or whatever." Now, chapter 2 has to deal with ethics and public speaking. Um, Ethics are the branch of philosophy that deals with the issues of rights and wrong in human affairs. And yes, I took that directly from the book. Um, and it talks about how when it comes to using ethics and using it in speaking and preparing these public speeches, you want to make sure that everything you do is ethical, but you also want to make sure that when you do it, does the ends justify the means? And with that being said, you just don't want to do something that's going to be too outlandish and then regret it later on. It also talks about plagiarism, and as we know, plagiarism is just taking somebody else's work and using it as your own without giving credit to the person that does it. It gives a little more in depth to plagiarism, being global plagiarism is taking an entire passage or an entire, I'm not even going to say passage, it's going to be an entire text, meaning you take a paper from online or something, you change the name, the date, all that good stuff on it, and you submit it as just your own. You wrote nothing, you did none of the research. That is completely global plagiarism. Patchwork plagiarism is when you take a work of one person, a second person, a third person, maybe even a fourth and a fifth. You put it together in one paper. You maybe mix it up a little bit, and then you use it on as your own. You don't give credit to the people who did it, and that's plagiarism in a nutshell for when it comes to patchwork plagiarism. The more common, which is incremental plagiarism, is when you borrow parts of it and forget to give credit to the person that you took it. So you could have taken a passage this long out of a book, let's just say the Bible, and you forgot to quote it by saying who the author was, what book it came from, or anything like that. And therefore, you've just, accidentally had incremental plagiarism. Now, the third chapter has to do with listening. And I really loved that chapter because listening has a lot. Listening is what I have to do every day with being in law enforcement. And it also talks about the difference between hearing, which I think we confuse with listening every day. And it talks about confusing the difference between hearing and listening. And the biggest thing is when you hear something, you know that it's coming in. You hear it in your ear, but you tune it out. You have no idea what they talked about. But when you listen to something, you can actually recall what they say. And the book goes on to say that people only retain about 50% of what they actually listen to. So I can't even imagine if you're not even really paying attention. You definitely don't know what they're talking about. It also goes on to talk about how to be better listener, and I think that's something that everybody can use. And then we go into chapter 4, which is about giving your first speech, which is what most people have already done with their introduction speak. And really it gets the jitters out of you, and it prepares you a little bit more for your next speech. It talks about how you want to format your your speech, being it's going to be an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. You want to make sure that it's in chronological order. You want to make sure that you have eye contact. You're giving attention to the people that you're speaking to, if it's in a public place. Um, how to channel your nerves. It talks about that again. And then it talks about just using your everyday expressive voice and how, it's just like your normal conversation, but you just might have to speak up a little bit more than what you would in a normal everyday conversation because you're speaking in front of multiple people.